Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we begin a new Masechta, a new Seder actually, Seder Noshim, Masechta Yevamos. So before we actually begin the Mishnah, just a few words as an introduction, b'negea to the whole Seder Noshim. So one of the famous questions that the Rishonim ask is, why does Seder Noshim begin with Masechta Yevamos? Masechta Yevamos will discuss a certain circumstance where a person passes away without any children, and the Torah gives the mitzvah of yibum, that the brother of the husband has to marry his wife, and then lahakim shem la'achiv, to give birth to a child to perpetuate the remembrance of his brother that passed away. But it's not the regular thing. The Mishnah, the Seder, should have began with Kiddushin. And in fact, Kiddushin is the very last Masechta of the entire Seder Noshim. Not only is it the last, it comes after Gittin. Gittin, which is talking about how you divorce a wife, and that comes before Kiddushin even. And we start after with Yevamos. So there are two answers that are given to this. The Rambam's answer is that Yevamos will discuss a marriage which is an absolute obligation. Well, you do have the option of chalitza, as we'll see in the Masechta, but if you don't do chalitza, yibum is a chiyuv, that you have to marry this wife. When it comes to the mitzvah of Kiddushin B'chlal, so it's not a mitzvah in the same way as yibum. I don't have to marry this woman, I don't have to marry her now. And not only that, I mean, even though l'chayre Kiddushin, getting married B'chlal, is a mitzvah, the mitzvah of Piri V'Ribiyah, to have children, but it doesn't have to be now, it doesn't have to be with this wife. And not only that, the Gemara says regarding Ben Azai, that he never got married because he said, Nafshe Chashka B'Teire, he was learning Teire, so he was potter, he didn't get married at all. But Yibum is an absolute chiyuv. So therefore the Rambam says, it begins with this Masechta, which is a chiyuv. The Taisus Yantiv says that one of the inyanim that are going to be discussed in this Masechta extensively, and you actually see it right in the beginning in the first Mishnah, that is, even though it's not directly the subject of the first Mishnah, is all the different Isurei Arayas. There's all kinds of Isurim of the women that are forbidden to have a relationship with, the Arayas. And so therefore he says, before we're going to discuss the mitzvah of Kiddushin, we learn a Masechta, which a very big part of the Masechta is going to discuss the Isurim, who you're not allowed to marry, who you're not allowed to have a relationship with. That's why this is the first Masechta. Another word, b'negea to Kiddushin, which the Rebbe said, b'negea to why Kiddushin is all the way at the end. Not only at the end, but it's after Gittin, is because it's a remez, al derech hadrush. What this is a remez for is, the Gittin refers to the divorce and the separation between the Eibishter and Yidden that happens in the time of Golus. And Yidden look at the time of Golus as being a time of darkness and separation, and you don't see any hope necessarily that there's going to be a connection again. So therefore, Rabbeinu HaKodesh was Mesader that Kiddushin comes after Gittin. That the Gittin is only temporary, and after you're done with the Gittin, the Golus, the Gittin leads to Kiddushin, which is the building of the third Beis HaMikdash and the full connection and the marriage of the Yidden and the Eibishter again. Okay, that's b'negea to Seder Noshim B'chlal. Over here, this Masechta, so the Masechta is going to discuss the halachas of Yibum, which is based on the three things that the Torah says b'negea to Yibum. What are the three mitzvahs that it says in the Torah regarding Yibum? So one is the mitzvah itself of Yibum, of marrying your brother's wife if he passes away without children. The other mitzvah is that, or it's actually a loisasa, that she is not allowed to marry anybody else. Loisia eishes ameisa chutza. She's not allowed to marry anybody else unless you do chalitza. And then there's the mitzvah of chalitza. The mitzvah of chalitza, which is a unique mitzvah to how to separate a yavam from a yevama if he doesn't want to marry her. Chagav b'zman hazeh, you probably know we don't do yibum anymore. We only do chalitza. At least amongst the Ashkenazim. Maybe amongst the Sfardim they still do Yibum. And the reason is because there's an opinion in the Gemara later, we'll learn, Abu Shol, he says that the whole mitzvah of Yibum is dafke if it's being done with the right kavanah, l'shem mitzvah. If the Yibum is not being done l'shem mitzvah, then he says it's a issa erva. It's like almost like an issa erva. Why? Because really, it's one of the arayas, which is a chiyuv kares, is that you're not allowed to marry a brother's wife. And so really, if not for the mitzvah of Yibum, this is one of the ervas, Eisha Sachiv. Elomai, the Torah over here, in this case, where the brother didn't have any children, took this Issa erva, which is a kares, and turned it into a mitzvah. So if you're not doing it with the right kavanah, so then Abu Shal says it's almost like a Issa erva. So that's why Bizman Hazeh, we were not sure that it was being done mamish l'shem shemayim or l'shem mitzvah. We don't do Yibum, we only do chalitza. That's the reason. Okay, let's begin the Mishnah. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah, Chomesh Esrei Noshim. The following 15 women, which the Mishnah here will tell us, Poitrais, tsareiseyen, vitzares tsareiseyem, and achalitzim and yibum. Okay, so the point of this Mishnah, what it's going to say is that this whole entire mitzvah of yibum will only apply if it's the brother's wife that you're allowed to marry, which is mutter to you. Mutter to the yavam, that is. It's mutter to the yavam to marry. If this woman that was your brother's wife is someone which is an erva, which is an isser for this yavam, for the brother to marry, then the mitzvah of yibum does not apply. In other words, the chiddush of the Mishnah is you may have thought that since this is a mitzvah of yibum, so therefore I ignore the fact that my brother's wife is an isser for me to marry. Even if my brother's wife was an erva to me, it doesn't make a difference. I have a mitzvah now, so even if there's a issa erva, I can still marry her. So the Mishnah says, no, that's not true. That if your brother's wife is an issa erva to you, so then you're not allowed to marry her. And there are 15 different scenarios of women that are allowed to be married to your brother, but after he dies, it'll be an erva for you, and the whole mitzvah of yibum does not apply. And now what this Mishnah is saying is, not only does the mitzvah of yibum not apply to this woman because she is an erva to the brother, to the yavam, but also tsareiseyen. Tsareiseyen means a rival wife. Even if he has a second wife, so once the erva patters from yibum, from this wife that's actually is a erva, so now the mitzvah of yibum will patter even the second wife as well. There's no mitzvah of yibum that applies to her either. Even though you may think, what the second wife, there's no reason that should stop the yibum. She's not an erva to the yavam. So why should we do the mitzvah of yibum? But once the isser of erva on one wife stops the yibum, the mitzvah of yibum regarding that wife, there's no mitzvah of yibum for the second wife either. And then the Mishnah goes, that's what the first statement of the Mishnah means. The following 15 women that the Mishnah will say that are an issa erva, so that they will take away, it'll pater, tsareiseyen, even the second wife as well, that there's no mitzvah of yibum for her either. And vitzares tsareiseyen, and also tsares tsareiseyen, which is something the Mishnah is going to explain soon. Even the second wife, okay, we'll have to wait later for the Mishnah to see what that means. There's no chalitze and there's no yibum here either. At seifa olam. And this continues, this goes forever, as the Mishnah will soon explain what this term at seifa olam means. But before we get to the details of what tsaris means, or what tsaris tsarisei means, and what at seifa olam means, first let's see the list. Who are these 15 women, which are an issa erva for the yavam, and therefore the mitzvah of yibum does not apply. The following are the 15 women. Bitay. First one is his daughter, which basically means a person married his niece. So it's his brother's daughter. And now he passes away, so there's a issa of erva. The brother, the yavam, can't marry his daughter. So there's no inyan of yibum here. Or a bas bitay. It was his daughter's daughter that his brother married. Ubas benoi. Or a son of his daughter. Or a daughter of his son, that is. Bas ishtay. Or another case is, it was a daughter of his wife. Ubas bena, or a daughter of her son, of his wife. Ubas bita, or the daughter of his wife. Okay, so Rashi here points out, just a simple pshat in the Mishnah, the first case of the Mishnah was bitay, right? That it's your brother's, the yavam's daughter. And bas ishtay is the yavam's wife's daughter. So l'chayre, these are basically the same thing. If it's your wife's daughter, isn't that include also the isser of bitay? What's the difference between them? So Rashi explains that the difference is when it says bas ishtay, this is your wife's daughter that you married al pitayre. It's your wife. When it says the first time in the Mishnah bitay, it's not referring to your daughter that's from your wife. It's referring to a daughter that's, like Rashi says, bas bitay me'anusasai, that a person had a relation with a woman not in a way that it's allowed. Anusasai, he was ma'anaser, against her will, and she gave birth to a daughter. So the Mishnah is separating them because they're learned from different places. You would have thought that the whole isser of erve is only b'nigeya to if it's your wife's daughter. So the Mishnah also mentions bitay, which means if it's your daughter, regardless if it was a daughter from your wife or even a daughter from a woman that you had a relation with her that was an anusa. The Mishnah continues weiter, chamaisai, if this woman that is now the Yevama is your mother-in-law, so in other words your brother married your mother-in-law, his mother-in-law's husband passed away, the father-in-law passed away, and the brother went and married his mother-in-law. And now the yibum would have to be with the mother-in-law. So there's no yibum for a mother-in-law because it's one of the arayas in the Torah. Or ve'eim chamaisai, the mother of the mother-in-law. Ve'eim chamav, or the mother of the father-in-law. So Rashi brings the psukim that it says, the Gemara learns it out in Sanhedrin, that a mother-in-law, the mother of a mother-in-law, these are all arayas, and therefore there's no yibum for the brother. Achaisai me'imai. If this woman that fell for yibum is a brother, is a sister that is from his mother. So what does this mean? So Rashi here explains, the whole mitzvah of yibum applies to a brother that shares the same father. If a brother passes away, but it's not your brother from your father, it's only a brother from the mother, there's no mitzvah of yibum. And we learned this out, the Gemara will later compare it to it says over here, when you get to the mitzvah of yibum, ki yeshvu achim yachtov, and we learn it out from the achva that it says by Bnei Yaakov, that they all shared the same father, but they didn't share the same mother. So the whole mitzvah of yibum is when they share the same father. Okay, so you have a brother that they share the same father and they do not share the same mother. So then it's possible that your brother married your sister, which was not his sister because they don't share the same mother, and now he would have to do yibum to his sister of his mother. They share the same mother. So because it's his sister, there's an erva, achaisei me'imai. Or va'achaisei imai. Or also it could be that the erva is a sister of your mother. And again, the case over here is that for your brother, this was no issa whatsoever because you don't share the same mother with your brother. So he married this woman. But now, for the Yavam, this is his aunt. So therefore there's a issa of erva. Or v'achais ishtai. Or that, let's say two brothers marry two sisters. So there's a issa to marry two sisters. So that's an erva that he can't marry. Or ve'eshes achiv me'imai. Or this is a wife of your brother, but this is not your brother that shares the same father with you. It's a brother that shares the same mother with you. So Rashi explains what this means is that this woman previously had married your brother that shared the same mother with you. Once she married a brother that shares the same mother with you, it's a isser of eshes achiv, the wife of your brother. And that isser of eshes achiv remains a isser forever, even after this person passes away. Now after this person passed away, now another brother, which is not your brother from your mother, but is only a brother from your father, married her, and now she falls for yivum to you. Now she's the woman that you have to be meyavim. Since she previously married your brother that shares the same mother with you, and therefore this is a issa that remains forever, the fact that later now she married a brother which only shares the same father, and there should be yivum, the issa that was previously there because she married your brother that shares the same mother is never going to go away. So therefore there's an issa of erva here. Sagt the Mishnah weiter. The next case, the eshes achiv sheloi haya ba'olamai, or the wife of your brother. So usually there's the mitzvah of yibum, but sheloi haya ba'olamai. What does sheloi haya ba'olamai mean? So that means, let's say a person passed away and the brother that's supposed to do the yibum wasn't even born yet. The brother that's supposed to do the yibum was born after the brother passed away. The whole mitzvah of yibum is only if the brother, the yavam that has to do the yibum, was alive when his brother passed away. But if he's not alive when his brother passed away, there's no mitzvah of yibum, which is also based on the same pasuk that I mentioned before, ki yeshvu achim yachtov. The whole mitzvah of yibum is only if the two brothers were alive together. But if they were not alive, there's no mitzvah of yibum. And Rashi says that this actually goes even a step further, which means, let's say there were three brothers. There was one brother and he passed away, and while he passed away, there was a second brother that was alive. And that second brother went and did yibum. But now there was a third brother that was born later. So let's say the second brother that did yibum also passed away without children. And now the third brother that was born after the first brother passed away wants to do yibum on this woman. Since this brother was born later and he was not alive originally when the first brother passed away, this woman will always be asa to him. Even if after the yibum was done to the second brother and this third brother that was born was alive when the second brother did the yibum, but since he wasn't alive when the first brother passed away, this woman will always be an erva of eshes achiv. The whole Isser of Eishes Achiv only goes away if this brother was alive when the first brother passed away. If he was not alive when the first brother passed away, that Isser of Eishes Achiv remains forever.
It's to evil for the second brother.
Huh?
So the third one is to evil for the second brother.
No, but he can't. That's the whole point. He can't.
First wife's not, it was second wife.
No, he can't. He can't do yibum. He can't. If the third brother was born after the first brother passed away, even to be miyabim for the second brother that passed away, he also can't do yibum, because she was Eishes Achiv of the first brother when he passed away, and then he wasn't alive. So the Isra of Eishes Achiv was there, so therefore that Isra never goes off. Now he's alive. Now he's alive. So therefore this is Eishes Achiv. The last case the Mishnah says, V'kalosai, or his daughter-in-law. If the brother married his daughter-in-law, obviously after the husband passed away, and now the daughter-in-law comes and you have to do yibum on a daughter-in-law, so that's the last erva, the 15th woman that the Mishnah is mentioning, that there can't be any yibum. So again, just to repeat, the point of this Mishnah is, any time there's a issa erva for the yavam on this woman that he's supposed to do yibum for, the mitzvah does not apply. The point is that the mitzvah of yibum does not push off the Isser of erva. Harei elu paitrais. So these women will be pater for yibum, but not only they themselves cannot do yibum, but also they will pater the yibum of Tsara Seyen, of the second wife as well, where there's no Isser erva. But they will also be pater of yibum, and even v'tzara Seyen, and even a secondary tzara, as we'll see soon. The Mishnah will explain what that means. Mena chalitza, you don't require any chalitza, umena yibum, and there's no yibum either. At seifa ilam, and this continues at seifa ilam, which means it's not only tzara Seyen, but it could be even third, fourth, fifth. It can be till the end, as the Mishnah will explain. All of these cases that we mentioned here, so the point that we're speaking about is a person has two wives. One wife is an erva, so there can't be any yivum. And then there's a second wife, which is not an erva. But nevertheless, because for the first wife there is an erva, and therefore there's no yibum, so this paters the second wife as well. So now, all of these that we mentioned here, if the one that's the erva, which is the cause for the petur of the yibum, why you can't do the yibum, if she died before the husband died, or she was memayim. What's this concept of miun? This concept of miun, we'll see it also later in the Masechta, applies to a woman that did not get married min ha-Torah. If you get married for a regular marriage min ha-Torah, there's no concept of miun. Miun literally means that you refuse the marriage. A regular marriage, you have to give a get. Miun applies in a case where a ketana was married off by her brothers. This is a takana midrabanan, that since she's a ketana and her father passed away and there's nobody that could marry her off, so the chachamim gave the koyach to the brothers to marry her, but when she becomes bas mitzvah, when she becomes a naira, she can refuse the marriage. So over here, if the erva was married when she was a ketana, she was a yisayim and her brothers married her, and she was memayin, she's refusing the marriage, oin is garshu, or any of these arayos we mentioned, they got divorced, oy shenimtzu eilenis, or it turns out that this erva, the whole marriage was never really a marriage, because she's found to be an eilenis. An eilenis is a woman that can't give birth. So the whole marriage was a mistake, it was a mekach tos. She can't give birth. So the point is, if the erva that was married to this man either passed away, or there was a get, or the whole marriage was not a marriage, and this all happened before he passed away, so then Tsara saying mutarais. So then the second wife is mutter to get married to the brother, and then the mitzvah of yibum does apply. Now the Mishnah just clarifies a point there. This that we just said, that whether the one that was the erva, the woman, the wife that was the erva died, or there was memayin, or got divorced, or eilenis, so you can't say all of this regarding chamaisai, b'chamaisai, regarding his mother-in-law, or be'em chamaisai, and regarding the mother of the other mother-in-law, or be'em chamav, or the mother of the father-in-law, shenimtzu eilenis sheminu. These two details that we just said, that it turns out that this woman that was an erva turns out to be an eilenis, or that she was memayin, those two details do not apply to any of these cases. Why not? If it's a mother-in-law, obviously she's not an eilenis. She gave birth to his wife. We see that she's a woman that gives birth. And the same thing, the mother of the mother-in-law, the mother and the father-in-law. And you can't say miun either. Miun only applies to a ketana. that when she becomes a Gedaila, she's able to be Memayin. So those two details that we just mentioned here don't apply to these cases. I don't know. That's a very pashut. Maybe the Gemara will explain it. We'll have to wait to see. Okay, now the Gemara will explain how these cases play out. The Mishnah here is saying if you have one wife, which is an erva, it patters the other wife of the yibum as well. And the Mishnah said two details. It patters the second wife, which the Mishnah always calls a Tsara, and it also patters Tsara Seyen, which is a secondary Tsara. What does that mean? So what is the case where you say that one wife, which is an erva, will pater the second wife? So that's very simple. If the daughter, which is the erva to the yavam, or any of the other arais that we mentioned here, so they were married to the brother, and he also is married to a second wife. And he passes away without children. So just like his wife, which is the daughter, which is an erva, is pater from yibum, kach tzarasa petura. So also the second wife, even though the second wife is not an erva, will also be pater from yibum. That's the case of paiteres tzarei seyen. Now what's the case of paiteres tzarei seyen? So the Mishnah explains. What happens if the second wife, not the daughter which is an issa erva, but the second wife went v'nisis la'achiv hasheni, and went and did yibum, went and got married to the second brother. In other words, the brother, which is the one that is an issa erva with, to this daughter, so she's pater to do yibum with him. Because just like the daughter, there's no yibum, so too the second wife doesn't have any chiyuv to do yibum with this brother. But what happens if there's a third brother? And she went and she did yibum, this Tsara went and did yibum with another brother. And now this second brother that she went and did yibum with also has another wife. Umeis, and now he also passed away without children. So kishem shetzara's bitoi petura. So now he passed away without any children. So just like the Tsara, the second wife of the daughter, will be pater to do yibum to the first brother, which was an erva to the daughter. Kach tzaras tzarasa petura. So too the Tsara, the second wife of the second marriage of the yibum here, will also be pater. So again, if I can explain this case, if it, to be understood, you have, let's say, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Okay, so Reuven passes away without any children, and he has two wives. One wife is the daughter of Shimon, so you can't do any yibum to Shimon. And because of that, even the second wife of Reuven is also pater to do yibum with Shimon. But there's Levi. Levi, there's no erva whatsoever. Levi could do yibum. So therefore, the second wife of Reuven went and got married to Levi. And now, Levi passed away without any children either. And this Levi also had, besides this wife that he just married from Reuven, Levi also had a second wife. So now, says the Mishnah, the halacha will be that just like this Tsara that married Levi cannot do any yibum with Shimon, because when Reuven passed away, she was patered. She cannot get married to Shimon, because she was the Tsara of the erva to Shimon. The Tsara of the erva of Shimon cannot get married to Shimon. It's pater from yibum. So now, even after she marries Levi, and she now has a second wife while she was married to Levi, just like she can never go and get married to Shimon, that second wife of Levi could also not get married to Shimon. So that's called Tzareis Seyen. This is the wife that was the second wife of the first marriage to Reuven, and now this is the second wife of the second marriage to Levi. She also can't get married to Shimon. And the Gemara will learn all of these things out from Sukkim. The Gemara will say that this Issa of erva that stops the mitzvah of yibum is so powerful that it doesn't only stop the mitzvah of yibum on the wife that is an actual Issa erva, but it even stops it on the second wife. And not only on the second wife, that second wife carries that petur of yibum with her wherever she's going to go. Even when she's going to get married to another brother, and now that other brother has another wife, it's still she's going to carry that petur of yibum and affect the second wife to also be pater of doing yibum. And you can take this case and continue with it forever. Let's say there's 100 brothers. Let's in the continuation of the Mishnah here. The Mishnah says, even if you have 100 brothers. So it doesn't matter how far it goes. The mitzvah, this point that the Tsara is pater from yibum continues forever. If she married a second brother, then afterwards she married a third brother, she married a fourth brother, a fifth brother, and there's a second wife there. The point is that in the second, third, or fourth marriage, there's a second wife there. So just like she originally became pater of yibum because of the first erva, whoever else she marries later, she carries this koyach to pater a second wife and a third marriage and a fourth marriage, that no matter who she's going to be married with together to this second marriage will also be pater from the yibum. Atsev kol olam, as many brothers as there may be here. Keitzad meisu tzarei seyen mutarais. So if second, the Mishnah here goes back just a second. Going back to the point that we said before, right? What did we say before? That if the Tsara im meisu tzarei seyen mutarais, that if the Tsara passed away, again, in Mesu, the erva, right? In Mesu, we said before that if the erva passed away, that is right. So then Tsara is saying mutadoi, so then the Tsara will be mutter. So what does this mean? So the Mishnah spells out the case. If you had the daughter or any of these arayas that were married to the brother, and v'loi isha acheres, and he has a second wife, which is the Tsara. Meisa bitoi oy nizgarsha. So if the daughter passed away or she got divorced, v'achakach meis achiv, and only afterwards did the brother die, then tzarasa muteres. Then the Tsara will be allowed to get married to the Yavam. Okay, so this is simple. In other words, the point is that if this erva passed away before the brother passed away, so now there's no Issa Erva there that's patering from the Yibum. The fact that he was previously married to an Issa Erva doesn't matter. She passed away before him, so now the Tsara, the next wife that's still alive, that's not a Issa Erva, can do the Yibum. Now the Mishnah finishes off Benigeya to a point that we mentioned before regarding miun, which is that if you had a second wife, you had a wife that was an Erva, and then you had a second wife as well. So what did it say before in the Mishnah? That if this wife that was the erva was memayin, that she refused to stay married, so we're talking about a katana, so then so we said before that if she was memayin, so then the second wife could go and do yibum. So the Mishnah clarifies v'chol hayachayla lemayin v'loy miyana. When the second wife, which is an erva, it was a wife that's only married midrabanan. Why? Because she could do miun. Miun does not apply to a marriage minatayre, only midrabanan. So this is a wife that's only married midrabanan. So then Tsarasa, the second wife, is chayletzes v'loy misyabemes. This does not fully pater the second wife of yibum altogether. Usually, if the wife which is an erva is married minatayre, so the whole mitzvah of yibum does not apply b'chlal. And then the second wife can go out and marry whoever she wants. But over here, because the wife which is an erva is only married midrabanan, and therefore she can refuse this marriage, that's the concept of miun. It only applies to a marriage midrabanan, so therefore it does not fully pater the Tsara from the mitzvah of yibum. And therefore she still has to do chalitza. The truth is that minat Torah she should be chayav to do yibum as well, because the erva that's married is not married b'chlal minat Torah. But midrabanan, chachamim were geyser that you should not do yibum in such a case. But chalitza will still be necessary to do. Okay, that's the last halacha of the Mishnah. Okay. Just a second. Just to go back to a point that was mentioned before, connected to this, also to this last point here in the Mishnah. So the Mishnah is mentioning the concept of miun. And it mentioned before that this inyan of miun applies also to a person's daughter, right? That you could have the concept of miun when the erva is the daughter of the yavam. So Rashi asks an obvious question: how could you have a concept of miun if the erva we're speaking about is the daughter of the yavam? Miun only applies if the father of this girl passed away and the brothers married her off. If the erva is that she's the daughter of the yavam, that means the father's still alive. So she never got married through her brothers, and there's no inyan of miun b'chlal. So Rashi answers, there is an inyan of miun even when the father is still alive. And that's possible if she got married and her husband died and she became an almana, and now that she's an almana, she's out of her father's possession. Her father, usually a father has the power to marry off her daughter when she's a katana or a naira. But over here, once she got married and her husband passed away, so now she becomes independent, and now her father can't marry her off, and her brothers could marry her off. And that's the case the Mishnah was speaking about before, that there's miun even by this person's daughter, even though he's still alive. Okay, let's learn a shtickle from the Gemara. So Zok the Gemara. What the Gemara will discuss over here is the seder of the arayas that are brought in the Mishnah. Why is it brought in this order? Mechti, let's see. Kulu, all of these that we say here, that because they're an erva to the yavam, so you can't do yibum. What's the source that we learn it out from? Me'achais isha yalfinon. As we'll see later in the Gemara, it's all learned from a pasuk that it says by achais isha, that when the Yevama that you're supposed to do yibum with is the sister to your wife, which is an erva, that's the source from where we learn out that when you have that erva, there's no yibum. And from there we compare it to all the other arayas that's mentioned here. But achais isha is the original source. So if so, listni achais isha bereisha. If that's the original source to tell you that when there's an erva, there's no yibum, why isn't that the erva why isn't it mentioned in the Mishnah first? So the Gemara says, if you want to answer, Tane chumri nokat. The Tane, when he mentions all these arayas that stop the mitzvah of yibum, he's mentioning the most stringent ones first. And therefore he starts with bitoi and bas bitoi. And why is that considered to be the most stringent ones? So the Gemara explains, Rab Shimoni, our Mishnah is following the opinion of Rab Shimon, the Amma sreifa chamura. And Rab Shimon says that the punishment, when it comes to the punishments of Misa, so there's 4 different types of punishment: skila, sreifa, hereg, and chenek. And Rab Shimon says sreifa is the most severe punishment of Misa. The Rabbanon disagree, I think it's a Rabbanon, and they say that the skila is the most severe of the punishments. But Rab Shimon says it's sreifa chamura. Right, so therefore, what does the Gemara mean to say? When it comes to bitoi, as Rashi here brings, by bitoi, bas bitoi, all these women that it mentions first in the Mishnah, all of them is a issa erva, where the punishment is sreifa. And that's the most severe punishment. And that's why those are mentioned first. But if that's the case, lisni chamaisa bereisha. Let it mention the mother-in-law first, where there's a issa of sreifa, and not issa, that is, there's an einish of sreifa, and not only is there an einish of sreifa there, but the ikir sreifa b'chamaisa ksiva. The punishment of sreifa is written originally in the Torah regarding a mother-in-law. From the mother-in-law, you learn it out also to other cases, and also to a daughter and a daughter's daughter. But the original place where it says is the mother-in-law. So why, if that's the reason why the Mishnah is saying it first, is because of this severe punishment, that should be mentioned first in the Mishnah. V'oid, another question over here is, if we're following the order of what has more of a severe punishment, what's more of a severe erva, basa chamaisai, after it lists all the arayas from the daughter, the daughter's daughter, and then the mother-in-law, the mother's mother-in-law, so the mother-in-law's mother, that is, after that should come kalosai, the daughter-in-law. Why is the daughter-in-law mentioned the last in the Mishnah? Why should the daughter-in-law come earlier? The basa sreifa, skila chamura, because after sreifa should come the daughter-in-law, where the punishment for that is skila. The other arayas that are mentioned in the Mishnah, even before the daughter-in-law, there's actually no chiyuv misa at all. It's just the isser of karas. And with the daughter-in-law, there's a chiyuv of skila. So that should be mentioned earlier. So why is the daughter-in-law mentioned last in the Mishnah? So therefore the Mishnah says, or the Gemara that is answers, Ella bitoi, the reason why the Mishnah starts off with the daughter-in-law, the daughter that is. Bitoi, the erva of bitoi is mentioned first. Kivin the asya midrasha chavivalei. Because since the issa erva of a daughter is a issa erva that does not say clearly in the Torah. It's something which is learned from a drasha. So therefore the Tana of the Mishnah mentions something in the Mishnah that's learned from a drasha. You have this in a few places with the Gemara, where the Tosfos says this also, that the Tana sometimes starts a Masechta with a halacha that does not say mefurish in the Torah, even though you would think it should first begin with what's explicit, and then it tells you what's secondary, but the Tana starts dafka with something which you learn from a drasha, because that's more chaviv, because Chachamim had this chus and the kayach to darshan this. So over here it's the same thing also with a daughter. The Torah does not ever clearly say the isser of erva of a daughter. What does it say clearly in the Torah? The isser of the daughter of a daughter. But the bas bitay, that says in the Torah. But bitay itself, it does not say in the Torah. So that's why this is mentioned in the Torah first. Okay, this is mamish in the middle of the inyan. There's a continuation here, but we'll stop here.